Joining me now from Toronto are Ben Train and Jonah Babins. Welcome to the CJN Daily, guys.
Thank you for having us. So good to be here.
I read a story that 20 to 30% of magicians are Jewish, all the way back to Houdini. Were any of these at all? Did you study any of these? Do they influence you in somehow inform your journey?
I've never heard of Houdini. Can you explain a little bit more about who? I'm joking. Of course, these people.
You know his brother Hardeen.
Hardeen. Oh, Hardeen. I know Hardeen. No.
Who was also a magician. Hardeen was a real person. No
yes,
joke.
The people you're naming, David Copperfield. You know, was David Copperfield Jewish?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay, David Copperfield. Yeah, just checking. You know,
not
David
his real name, but David
right. That would make
is
sense.
Jewish.
You know, Houdini. Like these are obviously incredibly famous magicians, and they've played a huge role in our life. And exactly what you said. You know, it's funny. There is a lot of overlap between magic and Judaism over and over again, and we see it all the time. And yes, these people obviously had big influence.
You know what I mean, like when we talk about Houdini, the reason that Houdini became the most popular entertainer of his time wasn't just that he was a good magician or performer. It's that the things that his performances symbolized were powerful
at the time.
You know, it was this man who was a 5'4" immigrant of Jewish descent, who was the son of a rabbi, who was shackled and constrained by Russian government or, you know, the US police or whatever it was, and he would free himself from oppression and from the shackles of oppression. And so the symbolism, the metaphor was very powerful, especially during the period in which he was performing, World War I. And the same is true David Copperfield and David Blaine. And I would say if I were to connect the reason that you see so many Jews in magic, and there is a high number of Jewish people in magic, I think that one is that Judaism encourages people to get into the arts. It encourages intellectual pursuits, and magic is at its core an art that is also engineering and science. Yes. And so it's very much it rewards intellectual pursuits and artistic pursuits. It's also a selfless act in many ways. You can charge obviously for your work, but at its core, again, it's about sharing wonder and joy. And those are very Jewish things. And also, truthfully, I think a big part of it is skepticism. I think that, you know, I studied Jewish philosophy when I was in university, and it's very important in philosophy and in Jewish thought to be skeptical about the world around you and about the things that are happening. And magic requires skepticism, and I think Judaism requires skepticism. And when you add all those elements in together, that Jews had, in some cases, disposable income or opportunities, you know, sometimes in some cases the opposite. They were limited by opportunities. You know, when the reason that a lot of people speculate that Hollywood is so filled with entertainers who are Jewish is when Hollywood was formed, it was one of the few industries that let Jews and immigrants
right. They weren't allowed to do anything else. Then when they started being successful, people got mad at them.
In show business, if you're an intellectual and you wanted to do some sort of art, and maybe you weren't a good singer or dancer, you could do magic, you know, like that was a way to do it.
And I think the thing that you said earlier really, I think has resonated for me, which is there's something about this like quest for knowledge and for studying and for learning, you know, in Judaism that magic also has. You know, if we were to turn our camera, you know, 25 degrees, you would see 2,000 books in our house, about, you know, 75% which are
1,980.
75% of which are magic books. And, you know, these are books where you study, just like when you're in, you know, in Ben's dad's house, there's 1,000 Jewish books, all the Talmuds, all the, you know, and they look really similar. A magician's house and his library, and, you know, somebody who has, you know, a lot of Jewish books and Jewish text. So this quest for knowledge and studying and thinking and looking at deep resources and things like that, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something there that I think has a lot of magicians, you know, this like engineering problem solving type get into and get obsessed with magic.
Is there anything Jewish that you do in your acts, or any Jewishy routines that you do?
We have a lot of chutzpah.
Yeah, in the middle of the show, Moshe comes out, and I'm kidding. You know, here's the truth.
We bring 10 people up near the end of the show to form a minyan, and we do Mariv.
But it's only because it's late. It's very late.
That's the late show.
No, here's the truth. You know, it's funny. In our current act right now, do you have the glass with the matzah? We have a joke in our show which uses matzah and uses a bowl of matzah. Like, I have little pieces of matzah that are still from my cupboard, And, you know, if you're Jewish...
For those who don't know what matzah is stale crackers that sit in the back of your closet and it never goes good.
They're not even tam-tams. They're actual real matzah, right?
The real matzah.
Real matzah. It's actual matzah.
Shmura matzah.
No, it's not shmura matzah. No, the reason why it's matzah is because every like Pesach, our parents bring us matzah and we eat salads instead. So then at the end of the year, we have a big box of matzah, like I'm sure everybody does at the end of Pesach. They've got 4 in the back of their cupboard. So one day when I was trying to do the trick with crackers, I was looking. I said, I have 2,000 pieces of 2,000. What's happening to me? 2,000 pieces of matzah. You know, like we'll just start using those for the trick. So it happens by happenstance. Like we have a joke and we make a joke in the show. We refer to it as matzah. We say, oh, by the way, if you're Jewish, you also have matzah in your cupboard right now. So throw it out. You know, so we make those kind of jokes. But the truth is, you know, I learned a long time ago that when I speak, people know I'm Jewish. You know, people know, and I'm just being honest, the way I speak, the rhythm.
It's because he swears in Hebrew.
No. The way I speak, the rhythm, the timing, all of that, you know, it is very Jewish. And to be honest, we have a lot of people in our communities, Ben and I, when we slowly got into magic, a lot of the ways we did it, a lot of the events that were the first events that we got to be a part of are Jewish events in Jewish communities. You know, the amount of Hanukkah parties, you know, the first things that I did were Jewish summer camps. I went on tour Jewish summer camps for years. You know, I would email different synagogues every year and say, hey, I'm available, you know, for events. So now we do a lot of corporate stuff. Now we don't necessarily, a lot of like our act is not Jewish related humor.
And I'd say that's pretty Jewish related because we switched to the higher paying, better corporate work.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, right? We have, now we do a lot more corporate stuff, but there's obviously a ton of Judaism in our journey, in the way we talk.
The most Jewish part, I would say, of the show is the fact that both Jonah and I went to university for many, many years and then chose to disappoint our parents by going into the arts.
That's right.
So, hey, thanks, Mom and Dad, for the 10 years of university. I think that our work is definitely more secular in spirit, and we do have Jewish groups who will ask us to connect it and stuff, and we certainly can. But for us, I almost feel like Spinoza in certain ways, where a lot of Spinoza's beliefs were not necessarily, they were more connected with the world than they were with the above. You know, it's the physical plane, and our focus is about reminding people that the world is filled with incredible, wonderful, magical moments, even if that's not necessarily miracles. You know, seeing a friend that you haven't seen in a decade after you were thinking about them the night before is a magical sensation. You know, getting a coin in your change, and it's a really cool collectible coin that you've been looking for, is a magical moment. And our show is filled with, like, the world is filled with incredible things. You may have forgotten to be aware of how wonderful the world can be because we're always on our phones. The show is a break from reality to remember that this world is filled with incredible things.
And depending on who's watching it, you know, what's nice about magic is, you know, you don't say that this trick represents this, you know, this trick represents that. What happens is you perform magic and people take from it what they want.
It's a mirror. It reflects what you put into it.
So if somebody comes to the show and they're thinking about their Jewish values and they're thinking about that, you know, what's important to them, what's on their mind, what they're going to see in the show is going to reflect those things. Oh, maybe this was so fun. Maybe I need to remember to go spend some more fun time with my family. I'm so looking forward to Hanukkah. You know, that makes sense to somebody else who's not thinking that. They can say, oh, that's so fun. Let's keep drinking, you know, or whatever. So people take from the show what they want, and I think for us, we just attract the communities that we're part of. That's magic community, comedy community, people who want to be out theater, and of course, the Jewish community.
And the theologians. Theologians love our work.
And is there any kind of magic you don't do anymore or isn't cool because of the way we live now, consent and racism, and you have to be
plenty of magic
things you can't do?
There is plenty of magic that is horrifying that does not exist anymore because it shouldn't.
The one that I was going to say, the most obvious example that comes to our mind that was very prevalent at one point was what they called Oriental magic. So it was white men who dressed up and, well, you wanted to present your magic as being different and being mysterious.
From a faraway land.
So you would say he comes from the Orient, and here is magic from the East, and it is...
And some guy dresses up in a way that he shouldn't.
Yep, and he dresses up, and they would change their name and take on fake names, and it would be, a caricature of what their culture.
So it's cultural appropriation, blackface. That's
Correct.
not done. Minstrel
can
shows.
Can people still do something like that? Is a matter of debate that it extends, it's artistic debate outside of the realm of magic. Magic to me, like any art form, is a craft. So like painting and dance aren't inherently art forms. Those are crafts that you can use to make art. You can paint a house and that's not art, or you can paint a house and it is art if you're Warhol, like it depends on what you're doing. So
yeah, I mean, for me, I don't like being in real danger because I don't like being in real danger. So you won't see me eating fire or doing things like that. It's not because I have a moral stance on it. It's not because I have anything aside from I don't even like heights. So I don't want to do anything that's going to be dangerous or scary for me or is going to hurt. That's for me. Really, I mean, our general sense as human beings does a better job, in preventing us from, doing weird old things that are, racially insensitive or sexist or things like that. More than just
we want our shows to be inclusive and welcoming. It's better for us financially. It's better for us as a community. It's better for us as an art form if people can come and feel welcome. And, not to say that we can't push certain boundaries or push certain buttons, but we want to be very conscious of it. So like if we make a political statement in a show, we are aware that if we do such a thing, it's going to polarize the audience and we have to make that decision.
Have you? And if so, could you tell us what that was?
Yeah, I mean, I have. I mean, we do it differently because it's not, I wouldn't say that the Toronto Magic Company does it, but like Ben Train as a person, like if a political figure came out, like I was very vocal about, and again, this isn't necessarily reflection of the Toronto Magic Company, but me personally, I was very vocal about my displeasure about certain Donald Trump policies. So I had a joke in my show where I said last night I had a dream, and in my dream I dreamed about a terrible monster that had the face of Donald Trump and the body of Donald Trump. So terrifying, and jokes like that where they're not really, I mean, I don't think that's really pushing any boundary too much. It's more, to be honest, a joke about his appearance. I've performed at venues where they say, before you go on, no political humor, no stuff. And I get to make the decision as an artist if I want to take some of those shows. So for instance, I'll tell you, you were asking about Jewish events. I'll tell you something that I find personally problematic at some of the events that I'm doing. I will have someone who will call and they'll say, we want you to come and perform for our private school. And we don't want you to mention anything that has to do with pop culture, social events, anything that's in the news, anything. And I half jokingly say, wow, it sounds like you're really keeping them sheltered. And they laugh and say, we are. And I say, that is interesting. I am not the right entertainer for you because I think it is my job to get people to think about the world that they're in and interact with the world and see it in positive and other things. And
So to answer the question of like, how do we mention these things in shows? It's the same way that you mention things in conversations, right? If you're in Florida and you start yelling about Trump being the worst and people start looking at you horribly, well, then you're going to learn about how you want to talk and what things you want to express in the way that you talk to people in your regular everyday life. We're there to entertain. You're asking deeply what Ben's views are. And you saw, some of them are things you may agree with. Some of them are ones you may not agree with. And
we're conscious of that, like we're talking here because it's a podcast, we're getting into the nitty gritty. But like I said, my first and primary focus is we want our audiences entertained.
Who is the one, or what is the one next big goal that you want to perform with someone or be on a specific show? What's your next thing?
We want to do magic on the moon. So Jeff Bezos, if you can get no. The truth is, like we said before, right now we are growing and growing and growing. So the best thing that you will hopefully see is you're going to see more incredible things going on, specifically all over Toronto. More appearances and more chances for you to see magicians, see magic, interact with magic, and be a part of this in fun ways. For some people, magic is a kid's birthday party. For some people, magic is dressing up and a night out, with your girlfriend or with your wife. For some people, magic
or boyfriend.
Yeah, magic is learning how the tricks are done and being puzzle and problem solving. There's so much there, and we're really sharing all of it in Toronto, and especially now that COVID is not necessarily ending, but at least coming to a
hopefully
close
on the downturn
in some way, shape, or form.
Trend.
We now get to do it virtually with people all across the world and in person with people all across Toronto. So that's what you can see.
Yeah, just more magic. Yeah. That's the goal. Like he said, every time you check in, more magic. Once a month, once a week, daily, 8 events. So it's going to get crazy. we're building this community that continues to grow, and it blows my mind every year it's larger, and we're doing more and more programming. And depending on when people hear this podcast, like, we'll have shows going on every week, maybe multiple shows going on by then again. You know, we bring in the best magicians from around the world, including from Florida and from all over the US, but also internationally. We plan events. We do stuff for magicians specifically, but also for people who are aspiring magicians, and also people who don't want to be magicians but are just a fan of magic, or just people who are a fan of
have your downloads, and you have your teaching and your podcast. It's incredible. Some you give away for free, and others you charge. It's a really good balance, you know?
Totally. And that's part of that community building, is regardless of what kind of passion or interest you have in magic, we have programming for you, from free to paid to private to public. We got it.
We only have a few minutes left. How did you get Seth Rogen to endorse you?
I was at a bar and he was there. So I went up to him and I said, "Hey, dude, I love your stuff. Can I show you some magic?" He said, "Yeah." I showed him. He loved it. And he said some really nice things about me.
That's the cool thing about being a wizard like Jonah, is that everywhere he goes, he's ready to do wizardry. So if he runs into someone cool, bing, bang, boom, he can show them and blow their mind. And if there's any kids or people listening, or even adults, magic is a cool hobby, because no matter where you go, meeting new clients, new people, you got a trick.